Hello and welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, and tonight's bonus video is about Sam Kappelman-Lyons' hard 6x6 classic Sudoku, which I published on the community page of the channel a week ago, and it's had a lot of views and a lot of discussion. What I'm going to do now is talk about the logical solution to this puzzle, and I will admit that when I first had a crack at it, I bifurcated almost straight away, had the puzzle done in just over 2 minutes, didn't really think about it again, and I missed a lot about the puzzle in doing that, there's no doubt at all. Now, I think that's one way of going about the puzzle, but let's have a look at whether we can find something more logical in the puzzle and see where we can go with that. So, first of all, I think everybody found, well, at least we can use the threes. And there's 4 threes in the grid, we need 2 more. They're really easy to place given normal Sudoku logic. We can whack them straight in there. So everybody can do that bit, that's great. Now the next stage of the puzzle is where it begins to get interesting. So what else can we place in the grid? And you'll see if you study this pattern that there is no obvious cell that you can fill in immediately. So what's great to notice about this grid is that it contains an X-wing. Despite being a 6x6 puzzle, it's got an X-wing. And what I mean by that is, why don't you look at where 2 can go in this column and in this column? Now if you do that, you'll soon identify the only places where 2 can go in those columns are these 4 cells. So they've either got to be sitting at opposite corners like that or like that. Now whichever way round it is, the other blank cells in those rows cannot contain a 2. So that would be here, here, here and here. Now what's interesting about those cells not being able to contain a 2? Well, it's interesting in the corner. Right here, 6 and 3 are in the box, 5's in the column, 1's in the row, and now we learn from that X-wing that it can't contain a 2. So we can fill in a 4. What I'm actually going to do is colour the cells of the X-wing so we can see that more clearly. So I'm going to colour them in green for the 2. There we go. So 2's cannot appear in the other cells in those rows. Now, that's given us this 4. And this puzzle has a certain degree of symmetry. The givens, as we see at the beginning, were symmetrically placed, as are the 3's. Now the 6 works exactly the same as the 2, so we've got another X-wing. And what I'm talking about here is where can 6 go in columns 3 and 6? Well, the answer is, again, only in 2 cells in each of them. And those cells, unsurprisingly, given the symmetry, are in those positions. So I've coloured them in blue. Now, we know because the 6 has to be in those cells, in one of those cells in each of the 2 columns, that it must therefore be in one of those in each of the 2 rows. And again, these other cells in those rows cannot contain a 6. And again, that matters in the corner. If this can't be a 6, well, it can't be a 1, it can't be a 2, it can't be a 3, it can't be a 4, and now we know it can't be a 6. And we can fill in 5. So that's a great start. But where do we go from here? Well, I think possibly the best way to consider the next step is by, rather than doing the kind of Snyder notation that which we normally recommend of filling in places in boxes where numbers can go. So 2 could be in one of those 2 cells and 5 could be in one of those 2. That's normally very helpful to kind of get to a speedy finish, but it doesn't help when things get complicated so much. And here what I'm going to do is fill in the cells where there are only 2 candidates left. So I think in most of the 1st, 3rd, 4th and 6th columns we can do that. So that has to be 1 or 6. This one has to be 2 or 6. Now in column 3, they're all pretty clear. This has to be 5 or 6. This one has to be 4 or 5. 1, 2, 3, 6, 4 or 5 again. 2 or 4. 2 or 5. And up here, 2 or 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 or 2. But don't forget the X-wings. So the blues are where 6 has to be. So cells in those rows cannot contain 6 if they're not in that pattern. So this one, for instance, has to be 2 or 4. We can do the same down here. The greens must contain 2, so this is 5 or 6. Now, is there anything else we can do? Yes. There is, remember here, that this can't be a 2 because of the green pattern X-wing. So it also can't be 3, 4 or 5, so that's 1 or 6. And its equivalent cell is here. It can't be 6 because of the blue X-wing, can't be 4, 3 or 5, so it's 1 or 2. And now the thing to notice is the kind of juxtaposition of these two 1 or 2 cells, there and there. Now, what's really important about that juxtaposition is that one of these two in the X-wing has to be a 2. Therefore, these can't both be 2s. One of them at least, possibly both of them, but certainly one of them must be a 1. And they're both looking at this cell here. So one of them is a 1 and is looking at this cell here, maybe both of them. And now this cell can't be a 1, obviously it can't be 3, 4 or 6, they're in the box, it's 2 or 5. And look what that gives us, a 2, 5 pair. So the remaining cell in the box must be a 1 now. So we can put that in. Now we can do the same symmetrically because that's how this grid is working. So that enables us to, again, we've got, what is it here, a 5 and 6. No, sorry, I'm looking at the 1 and 6 pair. Sorry, the 1 and 6 pair here. Now, theoretically at the moment they could both be 1s or they could both be 6s, but no, one of these two cells on the X-wing is a 6. Therefore, at least one of these must be a 1. This cell can't be because they're both looking at it. So once this cell can't be a 1, it's a 4 or a 6. It makes a pair with the 4 or a 6. We get a 1 in here. And now we can put 2 or 6 in the rest of the column because this is now a 2, 6 pair. Same here. And now we can pull the same trick yet again. This is just mad, but here we go. 5 or 6 there, 5 or 6 there. And remember, they can't both be 6s because those boxes must contain 1, 6 in this X-wing. So if 5 and 6 can't both be X's, at least one of them's a 5. They're both looking at this cell. Well, 5 it can't be because of that. 4 and 3 are in the box. It's 1, 2 or 6. Now that's 3 digits, but look at that triple. That's a 1, 2, 6 triple. What we've proved is that the 5 has to be here. So we've used the X-wing not once, not twice, but 3 times in a 6x6 puzzle. Unbelievable. So anyway, we can now use that 5 to come back here, 4 there, 6 there, 4 there. I think we are down now. We could do it the other side as well, but we don't need to because that 6 is now resolved. Column 6 for us. We can put in a 4 there, 5, 6. And we're down to just ordinary Sudoku. Thank goodness, at last, we can just fill in the rest of the numbers here. 2 there, we've got a 5 and a 6 to go in, so that's the 5. There we go, and then just 2 more pairs to place, 1, 6 there, and 2, 1 there. And that's the solution to Sam Kappelman-Lyons' astonishing 6x6 Sudoku. I mean, I should say that when I first heard that he'd done a hard 6x6 Sudoku, I was very skeptical. I had created a 6x6 Sudoku for our first treasure hunt, and Simon had tried to get me to make it harder, and I eventually went back to him and said, really, there's only so hard a 6x6 can get, and I wasn't aware of this puzzle at that time, I can assure you. So congratulations to Sam for making it. Hearty congratulations to you if you solved it all logically. Frankly, it's quite hard to solve it logically because it takes a long time to spot all those logic steps and to restrain yourself to waiting for them. If we go back to an earlier stage of the puzzle here, where you've got all the all the two candidate possibilities sketched in. I mean, at this point, you could notice perfectly reasonably that if this was a 2, that would put 4 here in the column, that would put 4 here in the first box, that would put 6 here in that column, and with the 2 and the 5 there in row 4, you'd need to kind of get them both into that cell. So it's broken if that's a 2. So you could just fill that in as a 4 and finish off. Now, is that bifurcation? I suppose it is. It's only looking 3 or 4 cells ahead, but it's not as pretty as this solution with the X-wings used again and again. I mean, it's a fantastic puzzle. I hope you enjoyed seeing how you could unravel the whole thing with pure logic. It really is a bit of a feat of magic in some ways. So thanks very much for watching. We'll be back with obviously more content tomorrow, and looking forward to seeing you then. Have a good evening, stay safe, and see you next time. Bye now.